In this timeline, things were different. Unlike the original story where Gohan was just a 4-year-old child at the beginning of Dragon Ball Z, here he was 7 years old. This change, though seemingly small, made a world of difference. Instead of being sheltered from the dangers of the world, Gohan had spent years training alongside his father, Son Goku. Under his father's watchful eye, he had already begun to unlock his hidden potential, growing stronger with each passing day. This Gohan was not just a scholar with a timid heart. He was a warrior in the making. The sky was still a deep shade of blue, tinged with hints of orange as the first rays of dawn stretched across the horizon. The world was silent, save for the rustling of leaves and the distant calls of birds greeting the new day. In a secluded area, far from the bustling cities and towns, a young boy stood barefoot on the cool grass, his breathing steady, his gaze fixed on the towering figure before him. For years, Goku had guided Gohan through the ways of martial arts, teaching him everything he knew. The training had begun gradually, with simple exercises, but as Gohan grew, so did the intensity of their sessions. Goku had never forced his son into training. Rather, he had nurtured the boy's natural curiosity and growing love for combat. The result was a Gohan who embraced the challenge, eager to learn and push his limits. Each morning, as the sky blushed with the promise of a new day, Gohan and Goku met in an open clearing framed by towering mountains and whispering pines. The setting itself seemed to pulse with energy, a natural dojo where the elements of earth, wind, and sky converged to create the perfect environment for training. Here, under Goku's watchful gaze, Gohan practiced a series of rigorous drills, precise strikes, swift kicks, and fluid movements that echoed the ancient techniques passed down through generations of Saiyans. Goku, ever the dedicated mentor, emphasized that every movement was more than a mere physical act. It was an expression of the warrior's inner spirit. With each repetition, Gohan learned to harness his ki, the life force that flowed through every living being, channeling it with discipline and purpose. His training was both a physical and mental exercise, demanding focus, balance, and an unwavering commitment to self-improvement. Goku often recounted tales of his own battles, sharing the wisdom gained from triumphs and hardships alike. These stories not only served as training lessons, but also as moral guides, instilling in Gohan the values of honor, perseverance, and compassion. The natural surroundings amplified these lessons. The crisp morning air filled Gohan's lungs as he sprinted across dew-covered grass, his small feet pounding rhythmically against the earth. The rustle of leaves and the distant call of birds reminded him that nature itself was a teacher, a silent witness to his journey toward becoming a protector of Earth. During breaks, as the sun ascended higher, Gohan closed his eyes and listened to the subtle energy around him, learning to read the language of the wind and the whispers of the forest. These moments of quiet reflection forged an unbreakable bond between his spirit and the world he was destined to defend. Training sessions were grueling and unrelenting. With every drop of sweat, every bruise that marked his skin, Gohan felt the weight of his destiny drawing nearer. Yet, rather than instilling fear, these challenges ignited a fierce determination within him. A determination to honor the legacy his father had entrusted to him. Goku's gentle corrections and encouraging words resonated deeply with Gohan, reinforcing the belief that true strength lay not only in physical might, but also in the purity of one's heart and the clarity of one's purpose. In the quiet moments, after an intense bout of training, when the sun began its slow descent and cast long, golden shadows over the land, Gohan reflected on the day's lessons. Each lesson was a stepping stone toward a future where he might one day stand against threats too formidable for the untrained. He envisioned himself not just as a fighter, but as a guardian whose power was tempered by wisdom and empathy. The legacy of training was not merely about combat. It was about forging a character resilient enough to bear the burdens of a hero's destiny. Thus, in this tranquil yet intense setting, Chapter 1 laid the foundation of Gohan's extraordinary journey It was a story of early awakening, relentless discipline, and the intertwining of martial prowess with a compassionate spirit. A legacy that would shape him into the savior the universe desperately needed. Neither Goku nor Gohan could have known what the future held. They couldn't have foreseen that an enemy from the stars was already on his way, bringing with him a battle that would change their lives forever. For now, though, they trained, and with each punch, each kick, each lesson learned, Gohan was unknowingly preparing for the moment when he would stand against an unimaginable threat, not just as his father's son, but as a warrior in his own right. The days passed in peaceful routine, filled with training, laughter, and the quiet joys of a simple life. Gohan continued to grow under Goku's guidance, his strength increasing at an impressive rate. The boy, once hesitant about the life of a warrior, now embraced it fully, eager to test his abilities and push himself beyond his limits. However, amidst the tranquility of their secluded home, something began to feel off. It started subtly. Small disturbances in the air, faint tremors in the earth that had no logical explanation. Goku, always in tune with the natural world, was the first to notice. At first, he dismissed it as nothing more than seasonal shifts, but as the days went on, the feeling of unease only grew stronger. Something was coming, something powerful. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and violet, Goku sat on the porch of his home, gazing at the vast sky. Chi-Chi was inside preparing dinner, and Gohan was by the river, practicing his Kai control. The boy's energy flickered in the distance, strong yet steady, a testament to how far he had come. Yet, despite his son's progress, Goku couldn't shake the growing sense of unease gnawing at the back of his mind. It was as if a storm was brewing, invisible but inevitable. Gohan returned moments later, wiping sweat from his brow. "Dad, do you feel that?" he asked, his young voice carrying an unusual weight of seriousness. Goku turned to him, surprised, but not entirely shocked. His son had an incredible sensitivity to energy, and it seemed he had picked up on the disturbance as well. "I do," Goku admitted, folding his arms. "It's strange. It's not exactly close, but I can feel something big out there." "Is it a bad guy?" Gohan asked, his expression conflicted. Goku smiled reassuringly. "I don't know yet, but whatever it is, we'll be ready." Despite his calm words, Goku remained on edge. He had faced countless battles, but something about this felt different. It wasn't just the presence of a powerful force. It was the nature of it. Something about this energy felt eerily familiar. That night, sleep did not come easily. Gohan, too, found himself restless, shifting beneath his blankets as images of battle and unfamiliar figures danced through his mind. His instinct screamed that something was approaching, something that would change his life forever. The next morning was eerily quiet. The birds, usually so lively at dawn, were silent. Even the wind had stilled, as if the very planet itself was holding its breath. Then, it happened. A massive explosion of energy tore through the sky, followed by an ear-piercing sonic boom. In the distance, a brilliant light descended rapidly, crashing into the earth like a meteor. The impact shook the ground violently, sending tremors across the land. Goku and Gohan were outside in an instant, their eyes locked onto the smoke rising from the crash site. Chi-Chi rushed to the door, worry written all over her face. "What was that?" she cried. "I don't know," Goku said, his tone serious. He glanced at Gohan, who was staring wide-eyed at the distant explosion. "Stay here with your mother," he told him, but Gohan shook his head. "No, Dad, I have to go with you." There was no hesitation in his voice, no fear, only determination. He had trained for this. Whatever was coming, he would face it alongside his father. Goku hesitated for only a moment before nodding. "All right, but stay close." With that, the two of them took off, soaring through the sky at high speed. The landscape blurred beneath them as they made their way toward the crash site. The closer they got, the heavier the air seemed to become. A powerful energy radiated from the impact zone, suffocating and oppressive. Gohan clenched his fists. He had never felt anything like this before. It wasn't just strong, it was overwhelming. As they neared the crater, the smoke cleared just enough for them to make out a figure standing at the center. A tall, imposing warrior with long, wild hair and piercing black eyes. His armor, unlike anything Gohan had ever seen before, gleamed under the sun. His scouter beeped rapidly as he surveyed his surroundings. Then, his eyes locked onto them. Goku and Gohan landed on the edge of the crater, their expressions wary. The man smirked. "Well, well, there you are, Kakarot." Goku's heart pounded in his chest. That name. He had never heard it before, and yet, something about it stirred a forgotten memory deep within him. The warrior crossed his arms, his smirk widening. "I've been looking for you." Gohan swallowed hard. He didn't know who this man was. But one thing was certain. Their lives would never be the same again. The wind howled through the crater, carrying with it the scent of burning earth. The mysterious warrior stood tall amidst the wreckage of his arrival, his dark eyes fixated on Goku with a mixture of amusement and expectation. His long, unkempt hair swayed slightly, and his armor, unlike anything Gohan had ever seen, gleamed ominously in the sunlight. A strange device over his left eye emitted rapid beeping sounds, scanning the power levels of those before him. Goku's stance was tense, but composed. He had faced many powerful opponents before, but something about this man felt different. His presence carried an air of familiarity that unsettled him. "Who are you?" Goku asked, his voice firm. The warrior smirked, crossing his arms. "Humph, I expected you to recognize me." "Kakarot." He took a step forward, his boots crunching against the scorched ground. "I suppose that head injury they told me about must have been worse than I thought." Goku's brow furrowed. "Kakarot? That's not my name." The warrior let out a deep chuckle, shaking his head. "It is. You just don't remember. My name is Raditz, and I am your older brother." Gohan's eyes widened in shock. "What?" He turned to Goku, expecting his father to deny it, but his expression remained unreadable. Goku clenched his fists. That doesn't make any sense. I don't have a brother." Raditz's smirk remained, but there was a dangerous glint in his eyes. "Oh, but you do. And not only that, you're not even from this planet." He gestured toward the sky. "You were sent here as an infant. You are a Saiyan Kakarot, a member of a proud warrior race. Our people, what little remains of them, are feared across the universe for our strength. But instead of fulfilling your mission, you... what? Settle down with these weaklings." Pathetic. Goku's grip on his staff tightened. He had always known he was different, stronger than most humans, but he had never questioned his origins. His adoptive grandfather, Gohan, had taken him in as a baby, and that was all that had ever mattered. But now, standing before this imposing figure who claimed to be his brother, something deep within him stirred. Gohan, however, felt a mix of confusion and fear. His father wasn't human. He was an alien. And this man, this Saiyan, was his uncle. The words felt too strange to accept. Raditz tilted his head, eyeing Gohan for the first time. His scouter beeped again, analyzing the boy. His smirk faded slightly. "Interesting. You have a son?" He looked back at Goku, his expression unreadable. "That explains a lot." Goku instinctively stepped in front of Gohan. "Leave him out of this." Raditz chuckled. "Oh, relax, Kakarot. I'm not here to harm him. Yet." His expression turned serious. "I came to find you because we need your help." There aren't many Saiyans left, just 3 of us besides you. We have a job to do, a planet ripe for the taking. Join us, and together we'll conquer worlds as we were meant to. It's in your blood." Goku shook his head. "I'm not like you. I don't hurt innocent people." Raditz's face twisted into a sneer. "You disappoint me, little brother. You were supposed to destroy the humans, not live among them like some kind of weakling." Gohan could feel the tension rising. His father wasn't backing down, and neither was Raditz. He wasn't sure what to do, but he could sense something was about to happen. Raditz sighed dramatically. "Fine. If you won't join us willingly, I'll just have to persuade you." Before Goku could react, Raditz's figure blurred. He moved with terrifying speed, closing the distance between them in an instant. A powerful knee strike slammed into Goku's stomach, sending him flying backward, crashing into the rocky terrain. "Dad!" Gohan cried out, running toward him. Goku groaned, clutching his midsection. The impact had been brutal. He hadn't even seen it coming. Raditz was faster than any opponent he had faced before. Raditz rolled his shoulders. "Shh, you really have gone soft." Gohan clenched his fists. He had spent years training with his father, and now this man, a stranger, was attacking him. Without thinking, he rushed forward, aiming a punch at Raditz. It was a mistake. Before he could land a hit, Raditz caught his wrist effortlessly. You've got spirit, kid," he mused, tightening his grip. Gohan yelped as pain shot up his arm. "Let go of him," Goku shouted, forcing himself to stand. Raditz grinned. "You don't have a choice, Kakarot. You will either join us, or I'll take something precious from you." His tail lashed behind him, his grip tightening around Gohan's arm. "Come with me, or your son comes instead." Goku's heart pounded. Raditz was serious, deadly serious. Gohan, despite the pain, glared up at his captor. He was scared, but he wouldn't let himself cry. He had trained for moments like this. He just hadn't expected to be facing a monster that shared his blood. The battle for Gohan had begun. Gohan struggled in Raditz's grip, his small body suspended in the air by the Saiyan's crushing hold. His arm throbbed with pain, but he refused to cry. His father had taught him to be strong, to endure, to never give up. But this was different. Raditz was far stronger than any opponent he had ever imagined facing. "Let him go, Raditz," Goku demanded, his voice filled with fury. He clenched his fists, his body tense with frustration and helplessness. His mind raced. He had to get Gohan back. But how? Raditz was on another level. Raditz smirked, clearly enjoying his brother's distress. "You still don't get it, do you, Kakarot? You're one of us. Saiyans take what they want. If you won't, join us willingly. I'll take your son instead. He'll be trained as a true warrior, unlike you, living among these weaklings." Gohan's eyes widened in panic. "No, I won't go with you." He squirmed, kicking and thrashing, but Raditz's grip was like iron. Goku grit his teeth, his mind racing. He needed a plan. He couldn't overpower Raditz head-on. Not yet. But he wasn't alone. If he could hold Raditz off long enough, maybe there was a way to win. Taking a deep breath, Goku entered his fighting stance. His aura flared around him, his ki rising as he focused. "I'm warning you, Raditz. Let my son go or you'll regret it." Raditz chuckled darkly. "Regret it? Don't make me laugh. You don't stand a chance against me." Without another word, Goku charged. The moment his foot left the ground, Raditz reacted with terrifying speed. He shifted Gohan to his left hand and effortlessly blocked Goku's incoming punch with his right. The sheer force of their clash sent a shockwave across the battlefield, shaking the ground beneath them. Goku followed up with a flurry of strikes, punches, kicks, elbows, but Raditz countered each one with ease. It was as if he could predict every move, deflecting and dodging with a mocking grin. "Pathetic," Raditz sneered. With a flick of his wrist, he sent Goku flying backward with a single devastating punch to the chest. Gohan watched in horror as his father crashed into the dirt, coughing as he struggled to get back up. "Dad!" he cried out. Raditz sighed. "I expected at least a little challenge, Kakarot, but I see you're nothing but a disappointment." He turned his attention back to Gohan, his smirk returning. "But you, boy, you have power. Even my scouter can see it." Gohan trembled. He didn't understand what Raditz meant, but he knew one thing. He couldn't let this monster take him. He had to fight back. Summoning every ounce of strength, Gohan gathered his ki. His body trembling with effort, his small hands glowed as he formed a weak but determined energy blast. Raditz raised an eyebrow. "Oh, you want to fight too?" With a shout, Gohan unleashed his attack. The energy blast shot forward, but Raditz simply swatted it away like an insect. The explosion fizzled harmlessly in the distance. "Nice try, kid," Raditz mocked, tightening his grip. "But you're still too weak." Gohan gasped in pain, his energy drained. He had given it everything he had, but it wasn't enough. Goku, now back on his feet, clenched his fists. He had to do something, anything. Then, an idea struck him. "If I can't beat you alone," Goku muttered, his mind racing. His only chance was to find help. "I have to get to Master Roshi's, Piccolo, maybe even Kami. There's gotta be a way." But Raditz was watching him closely. "I know what you're thinking, little brother." He smirked. "But I'm not going to give you the chance to run." Before Goku could react, Raditz raised his free hand, his palm glowing with crackling energy. "This is over, Kakarot." Goku braced himself, preparing for impact. But just as Raditz was about to strike, something incredible happened. Gohan's body trembled violently, his eyes wide with shock and rage. His ki began to spike, not just rise, but explode. His aura flickered wildly, his power surging beyond anything he had ever felt before. Raditz's scouter beeped furiously, detecting the massive energy fluctuation. "What?" A golden glow began to shimmer around Gohan. His breathing grew erratic, his pupils shrinking as a deep primal fury consumed him. And then, with an ear-splitting scream, Gohan's power erupted. The very ground beneath them cracked from the sheer force of the explosion. The wind howled, kicking up debris in all directions. Raditz, caught completely off guard, was thrown backward as Gohan's body became enveloped in a blinding golden aura. Goku shielded his eyes, barely able to comprehend what was happening. His son's power, it had skyrocketed past anything he had ever sensed before. Gohan was changing. His black hair flickered, shifting, glowing, and for the first time in history, a child, barely 7 years old, was about to become something that had not been seen in over 1,000 years. A Super Saiyan. The air was thick with an overwhelming pressure, the very ground beneath them trembling as if the planet itself was reacting to the raw power radiating from Gohan. A golden glow surrounded his small frame, flickering like a raging fire. His normally black hair was shifting, glowing, turning into a bright, otherworldly shade of gold. Raditz, who had up until now been calm and in complete control, was frozen in place. His scouter, which had been beeping uncontrollably, suddenly shattered under the sheer magnitude of the power it was trying to calculate. His face contorted in shock. What? What is this? Goku, still recovering from Raditz's earlier attack, could barely believe what he was witnessing. His son, his 7-year-old son, was unleashing a level of energy beyond anything he had ever felt. This wasn't just a burst of anger or hidden potential. This was something else. Something ancient, something legendary. Gohan's breathing became erratic, his small chest rising and falling rapidly. His expression had changed completely. Gone was the frightened child. In his place stood a warrior consumed by sheer, unrelenting rage. His pupils had shrunk, His teeth clenched, and his entire body trembled with barely contained power. Raditz took an instinctive step back. This isn't possible. Gohan. Goku whispered in awe. He could feel it. His son was no longer just channeling energy. He was transforming. Gohan's screams intensified, echoing across the landscape, shaking the very heavens above. Bolts of golden lightning crackled around him, his ki expanding in waves. Then, in an instant, the transformation completed. His hair now stood completely upright, shining like molten gold. His eyes, once innocent and dark, had turned an intense, piercing turquoise. His aura blazed, an untamed inferno of golden light. For the first time in over 1,000 years, a Saiyan had transcended. Gohan had become a Super Saiyan. Raditz's disbelief turned into something else entirely. Fear. His scouter had been destroyed, but he didn't need it to understand one terrifying truth. Gohan's power now dwarfed his own. This can't be happening. Raditz took a step back, sweat dripping down his temple. You're just a child. You shouldn't have this power. But Gohan wasn't listening. His breathing had steadied, his stance now firm and unshaken. His expression, once filled with fear, had been replaced by something else entirely. Absolute fury. Goku was still in shock. He had never seen anything like this before. The stories of their warrior race, the legends that spoke of a Saiyan reaching this mythical state, had been nothing more than that. Legends. But now, standing before him, his own son had done the impossible. Then, in a blur, Gohan moved. Raditz barely had time to react before a devastating fist crashed into his stomach. The force was unimaginable. His entire body bent forward as a choked gasp escaped his lips. It felt as if his insides had been crushed. Gah! Before he could recover, Gohan followed up with another strike. A vicious uppercut that sent Raditz flying into the air. His body twisted uncontrollably as he soared through the sky. Gohan didn't hesitate. With a sudden burst of speed, he vanished and reappeared above Raditz, intercepting his fall. His tiny hands clenched into fists, his entire frame radiating with energy. With an enraged scream, he delivered a bone-shattering kick to Raditz's back, sending him hurtling back toward the ground like a falling comet. The impact was catastrophic. The earth shattered upon Raditz's landing, a massive crater forming from the sheer force. A dust cloud exploded into the sky, obscuring everything in sight. Goku stood frozen, mouth slightly open. He had never seen Raditz, who had toyed with him just moments ago, beaten so effortlessly. This was power beyond anything he had ever imagined. As the dust settled, Raditz lay at the center of the crater, his body battered, armor cracked, his breathing labored. He coughed, blood dripping from his mouth. His entire body screamed in pain. He forced his head up, his vision blurry, barely able to comprehend what had just happened. His mind reeled. How could a child defeat me? Gohan slowly descended, landing gracefully a few feet away, his golden aura still burning fiercely. His eyes locked onto Raditz's broken form with an intensity that sent chills down the warrior's spine. Raditz gritted his teeth. He had underestimated this planet. He had underestimated his brother. And most of all, he had underestimated this boy. He had one chance left. With a painful groan, he slowly raised his trembling hand and pressed a hidden button on his wrist device. A faint, static-filled transmission crackled through the remains of his scouter. Nappa! Vegeta! Are you hearing this? Despite his broken body, Raditz managed a weak smirk. Even if he died here, even if this child had somehow achieved the impossible, it didn't matter. Because now, the real monsters would come. Gohan stood over Raditz, his entire being still coursing with unrelenting power. His golden aura flickered violently, his body trembling with adrenaline and rage. But something was wrong. His breathing was erratic, his muscles twitching involuntarily. He clenched his fists, his sharp nails digging into his palms. His mind was clouded, filled with emotions he had never felt before. Anger, hatred, a need for destruction. He took a shaky step forward. Raditz was on the ground, barely able to move. He had lost, but Gohan didn't feel satisfied. He wanted to finish it. Somewhere deep inside him, a voice whispered, "Kill him, destroy him, don't stop." He raised his hand, golden energy gathering in his palm, his heart pounding. He had never felt like this before. He wanted to end Raditz. He needed to end him. But then, a hand touched his shoulder. The warmth of it was familiar. Steady. Gohan's wild eyes snapped toward the source. It was his father. Goku knelt beside him, his face calm but firm. His eyes held no fear, no judgment, only understanding. "Gohan," he said gently. "That's enough." Gohan's breath hitched, his body trembled. The golden glow around him flickered. I. His voice was small, uncertain. The rage, the power, it was intoxicating. But as he looked into his father's eyes, the fire inside him wavered. Slowly, his body began to relax. His golden aura faded, his hair shifting back to its original black. His breathing steadied, and his small hands, once clenched so tightly, loosened. He was himself again. Gohan fell forward into his father's embrace, his small body exhausted. "Dad, I was so angry." Goku held him tightly. "I know, but you controlled it. That's what matters." Gohan nodded weakly against his father's chest, his eyes closing. The battle was over, but neither of them knew that. Far across the galaxy, two even greater threats had just received Raditz's final message, and they were coming.